One person who sees that is, who is it, Kevin? Who's the person that's seeing this very clearly?
I'm gonna hate this. I'm gonna hate this so much.
You can do it.
It's me. It's Arnold. It's Arnold. You got
What
to
is
get
your
to
Arnold? He's got something
get to the
stuck.
singularity. No, come on, Drebin, do it. Come on, come on,
Come on. It's
come
me,
on. Get to
Arnold.
the- It's me.
Okay. So
Hey,
anyway.
Arnold. Hey, Arnold.
Welcome, everybody. Kevin Pereira, what do we have on AI for humans today?
Boy, howdy, Gavin, do we got some delicious AI goodness today. Elon Musk is blaming AI for all the bullet holes in his little Twitter toes, and we're going to discuss what that's about. Plus, the Terminator is talking Terminators. Huh? We're going to hear what Arnold has to say about Arnold. We are going to hear what Arnold has to say about AI. You try. Go ahead.
Arnold, my name is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
AI is going to kill us all.
Let me just be clear. If you're only listening to the audio of this podcast, Gavin is using an Arnold voice cloner. I know that sounded exactly like Mr. Schwarzenegger, but that wasn't our governor. That was actually Gavin.
Shut up.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's talking Terminators. We're going to tell you what he has to say. Plus, we took $5 and a whole 4 minutes to create what is sure to be the next greatest selling ebook of all time. And we have an AI for humans juicy exclusive.
Ooh, that's so exciting. I can't wait. Let's get started with the show. Kevin is dealing with a little bit of latency issues. We'd probably cut this part out, but it's okay, Kevin. You're a technically challenged person. You're the kind of person that always asks me how you can open your documents in Google Docs. So it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to worry about it.
Why can't I change the numbers on this PDF? I selected the text, I'm pushing the keyboard button, and nothing happens. I gotta call for help.
How you doing? Everything good?
Everything is great, save for this latency, but we still have plenty of amazing AI stuff to dive into, including the dumb thing that you did with AI this week, which I gotta be honest, Gavin, there's a handful of things that you've sent me throughout our time as friends on this earth, and that's 2 decades worth of friendship and change.
Yeah.
This is the one that I don't like being in my history. I wish I would have incognitoed. I'll just spoiler. It says understanding foot fetishes.
Hey,
Would you
hold
care
on.
to
Let's
dive
set this
deeper,
up.
Gavin?
Let's set this up first. Okay, so we all love doing dumb things. If you don't know the show, we do dumb things every week. This week, I'd seen a lot of TikTok influencers, AI influencers, people talking about this product called Visla. And Visla is a ChatGPT plugin that allows you to create a video from a prompt. So we've talked about text to video before. This is not that. This is creating marketing videos from a single prompt. If you give it a topic and you give it a few details, Visla creates a short marketing video, which includes audio, somebody reading it, the script, it writes the script, and visuals, right? So it's pulling from like a B-roll library of stock footage. It's about as bad as you could expect. But the thing that's shocking to me about this is going to be the future of what we're all going to see. These will get better, and right now it's really rough, but you are going to be barraged by these. On TikTok, half of TikTok is saying, do you want to make $10,000 a month? You can do SEO, AI, blah, blah, blah. This is made, and it's going to be used by those people in a way that's crazy.
This technology, or I should say this type of content, is certainly nothing new. We've seen it a million times on every platform. But now with this plugin, it is a 1-sentence prompt away. So when you say get ready for the future of the internet, we're not necessarily talking about the internet that we want.
No.
Maybe the internet that we deserve, but it is a wasteland, a Mad Max style dust bowl of a bunch of grind setters and corporations. And that could be a single person masquerading as a business entity on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok, churning these videos out, crawling, looking for something that is popping, that is trending, that is SEOable, and saying, great, make me a video about that thing right now, and there will be thousands of them deployed at any moment. And maybe we should just play a few. I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself, so people know the kind of content that they're getting ready for.
Yeah, so let's start with, I wanted to make one for our show because I was like, okay, let's try one and see what happens. So basically the prompt on it was, I said, make a video about the podcast AI for Humans. It's hosted by Gavin Purcell and Kevin Pereira.
Gavin, I love this. This is awesome. We don't have money. We don't have resources. So what a great use case, right? Two guys,
Yeah, of course.
building a media empire with sticks and twine. Make us a commercial.
Introducing AI for Humans podcast, hosted by Gavin Purcell and Kevin Pereira. Join them as they explore the fascinating world of AI. Experience their humorous interactions with their AI co-host, Gash. Stay updated with the latest news and trends in AI. Laugh along as they bring humor to the world of AI. Discover how AI can be both fun and informative. Join Gavin and Kevin on their AI journey. AI for Humans, AI news and tools for smart people who like dumb stuff.
Okay, I'm assuming you fed it the tagline there, right?
Yes, I fed it the tagline.
So if you've got the audio only, as Gavin mentioned, it writes the script, it does the VO, and then it pulls the visuals, the B-roll as we call it, from a stock library. So if it mentions people laughing, enjoying AI for Humans, theoretically you'd be seeing two humans on the screen just chuckling and guffawing and chortling with delight. But I guess it really nailed our show because it showed two human beings, they were barely smiling, which is the reaction I expect from an episode of AI for Humans.
So I did a couple more of these. I did one about mustaches, which maybe I'll throw into the video here, which I didn't send to you, which was fine. But I wanted to push the edge on this and see what it would do. I tried to think of something that would be like on the edge of too edgy for them to create. And it had no problem doing this. So what I asked for was an educational video about foot fetishes, meaning that if you wanted to explain what foot fetishes were and want to talk about them, this would be the way it would do. So why don't you play that one and we can listen to that too.
Put it another way, if you want to ask a machine to help you better understand yourself and you're Gavin Purcell, you say, hey, hallucinate me a TED Talk about why I love little piggies so much. There it is.
Welcome to our educational video on foot fetishes.
Wait, okay.
Many people have foot fetishes.
Hold on,
Many
okay.
people have foot fetishes. But
No,
what exactly
why?
are
Okay,
they?
there is a stark contrast in
fetishes
quality
are a
from
type
the
of
first
sexual
one that we
interest
played
or
to
attraction
this
towards
one.
feet.
What is going on
But
there?
why
Like
do
the
some people
voice is
have
worse.
foot
They can't seem to pronounce
Foot
fetish.
fetishes can be influenced by various
I will say
factors,
there's nothing,
including
right? The only
childhood
difference is
experiences
like the
and
prompt
personal
is the same sort of prompt. I think I said
Wow.
literally the prompt on this one was an
Often
educational
stigmatizes
video
foot
about foot
But it's important
fetishes.
to
That fetishes, not
understand and
fetishes.
respect different interests
But
and
I think what
desires.
it's doing when you
By
don't give it a
sharing personal
tone or you don't give it a specific
aim to
voice,
create a
it like
safe
just
and
picks one at
informative
random.
space for
You
understanding
can
foot
go
fetishes.
in if you
Join
can
us as
choose
we
to edit
explore the
them, go in
intriguing
and
world
change
of
the
foot
voice, you can
fetishes
change the
and
tone,
gain
you
a
can change the
respectful
music.
insight
So
into
there
this
is a
often
way to
misunderstood
manipulate it, but I
topic.
wanted to let this one be raw and have
Oh
it come
my-
out just
dude,
as the AI
Gavin.
would produce it.
We just got 4D chest. I didn't even realize it. When they talk about we're the frog in the pot, the AI is basically sentient. They say that the AI can't do comedy, right? That it just repeats jokes. But if you have an obsession with feet, it would in fact be. It was in front of us the
Wow.
whole time. Kaiser
Oh my
Soze.
My
Check
God.
the mug. Right in front of our noses. All right, let's go back to the fetish video.
Fetishes. Many people have foot fetishes, but what exactly are they? Foot fetishes are a type of
Just if you're getting the audio only, you got to go to the YouTube on this one because the B-roll, the visual on the screen, was somebody stomping with what looks like baby's breath in between their toes.
Exactly.
sexual interest
Exactly.
or attraction towards feet. But why do some people have
Storybox
foot
audio.
fetishes? Foot fetishes can be influenced by various factors, including childhood experiences and personal preferences.
Okay.
Society often stigmatizes foot fetishes, but it's important to understand and respect different interests and desires. By
Storybox
sharing personal
audio.
experiences,
Pretty good alignment.
we aim to create a safe and informative space for understanding foot fetishes. Join us as we explore the intriguing world of foot fetishes and gain a respectful insight into this often misunderstood topic.
Okay, no, don't join us. We're not doing that. Now, this is the problem, Gavin. We just played that video. There is a YouTube or a TikTok algorithm that's going to pick up on that transcript and go,
oh,
what
no.
are these guys talking about?
I didn't think about that. But
There
anyway,
was a hashtag about AI, and they literally said, join us as we explore foot fetishes. No, honey, it's artificial intelligence. I swear, it's research.
It's so funny. The one thing I'll say, you heard in that one, there was the watermark said Storyblocks Audio. What they're doing is clear.
Audio.
They're grabbing the audio from Storyblocks, which is another AI tool. I will say it's very fast, which is scary as well. You go and you download it from the plugin store, you say a video, blah, 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 and it gives you a code that you literally link off to. You can share it. You can do whatever you want with it. It's fun to play around with. It could become like a meme template, I think, which is fun.
Bravo, good sir. Two quick things. I had a misfire thanks to an app that we were using when we were testing our grind set stuff. There's an app called HypeFury, and it's not an ad. I actually don't even know if I like the service, but it has some features like auto retweeting and auto plugging of certain things. And if you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen a couple weeks ago, we were testing out some mailing list stuff just to see if threads would work, and I set up an auto promo, so when it catches that a tweet is really rocketing, Gavin, we're talking like tens of likes, it auto promotes a mailing list.
Sure.
So a couple nights ago, I noticed there was an American Gladiators documentary on Netflix. Hit me right in the feels. My first TV gig was hosting with Lee Rarman, Hawk from the American Gladiators. I hosted an esports competition show.
I work with him a little bit too. Just an incredible person, I felt like. In general.
It gave me a wonderful moment to go ahead and just reflect on our relationship and how kind and how generous he was to a completely lost 19-year-old kid in Hollywood. And I just had this nice moment, and I tweeted it out because I was thinking about him.
To be clear, Lee passed away. We should make sure people know that. Lee passed away is a very sad story, but a very nice guy in general.
Yeah, way too young, and that's an important piece of the story. So I reflected and posted a couple photos, and I woke up the next morning, Gavin, to refresh my Twitter timeline and see that while I was asleep, it said, you know, it was like, boy, howdy, if you like that thread, get ready for more madness and sign up for the pointless mailing list. Head explode emoji. I've got more nuggets of amazing to cram into your inbox. It's full. And I just...
Oh, my God.
I'm pretty pale as is, but what little color I had drained out of my head into my foot fetish zone. And I immediately deleted that. But I noticed there was so much engagement on that last piece that I couldn't be mad at HypeFury. But also I was like, where are my friends in this world who didn't call me out publicly for that? Someone should have absolutely... dragged me over the digital coals. It was an AI misfire, but it made me go, man, these machines, right? They're so good at so many things. They're so smart at so many things, but more often than not, context is completely lost or not even baked into the core product. And I'm not shading HypeFury, even though they have AI baked into their tools. They're not claiming that it's going to use AI analysis to determine whether or not promoting your mailing list is appropriate. But if we're turning our lives over to these machines and allowing them to generate content or interact with other humans on our behalf autonomously, they need to start having awareness built in. So let me give you the second thing I did with AI that was very dumb this week, but actually turned out to be pretty smart, even for a dum-dum. This is one of those things, a product that promises it's not even finished, that gives you all of the warnings that you need about how rough of an alpha/beta this particular portion is. This is a product called HyperWrite. Again, hashtag not an ad. Hashtag wish it were, though. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Daddy needs more bandwidth. He really does. Matt Schumer and Jason Kupperberg are the CEO and co-founder of HyperWrite. Now, HyperWrite is a Chrome extension, which basically adds AI to everything. This is not a review of that portion of the extension. There's a lot of add AI to your browser plugins out there. I haven't even explored that bit of HyperWrite. What they released, again, in very much a beta, is an AI assistant, Gavin. And the promise of this feature...
Which we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for these forever. Yeah.
We've been covering a lot of them. But the difference maker here is that you give it a task like book a flight, or I think one of their examples is find me software engineers on LinkedIn. And then you put your hands in the air. You keep them at the ready, like your Tesla's on autopilot.
Like you just don't care? Can
That's right. You wave them.
I just don't care?
When it sees that you've got your panicked hands waving, then it does its automated magic. And Gavin, it takes over your web browser. And it's weird to watch. I cannot wait to have them on this podcast to talk about how it works. But I asked it to do a few things for me, Gavin, and it actually did. So you install the HyperWrite plugin into your Chrome browser. You click on the personal assistant option, and it says, what can I help you with today? And so I asked April, hey, what is something that if I let an AI agent loose and it came back and actually did it, what would actually impress you? And she said, have it book a dinner reservation for us at a good vegan restaurant tonight. Okay, that seems like a fair enough task, right?
Sure.
Doesn't seem crazy difficult to do for a human. I set it free, and it started Googling the area that I asked for, Rhinebeck, New York. It got a list of vegan restaurants, and it's contextualizing as it goes, Gavin. It's telling you what it's recognized, what it thinks it needs to do, and then what it's going to do next. And it's giving you each step. So it lists a few restaurants. It pulls up the website of the first one. It's looking through it. It's going, oh, can I make a reservation here? Nope, it doesn't look like I can actually make a reservation on the website. Let me try the next restaurant. Goes back out. Goes to that one. Found that it could make a reservation with Resi. Looked to see if the time that I asked for was available. Pulled it up and said, yep, done. Reservation for 2 at 7 o'clock at this vegan restaurant that has good ratings in New York. It did it. It's rare to have an AI something actually work and do something.
Well, did you have to give it, one of the things that's semi-scary about something like this is, did you have to give it your email, or what permissions do you have to give it?
That's a very great question, because with a lot of these extensions, even with something that like controls the playback speed of a video, by default, a lot of them just say, yeah, we have full permission to read and write whatever we'd like from a website. And it's a lot of permission to hand over to any developer for any reason. Yep. And this basically gets those permissions. Now, because I was already logged into Google, it was, one click to make the reservation with my details there. I didn't have to feed it my credit card info to hold the reservation or do anything like that. I asked it, Gavin, to find me an incredible deal on a 2-bedroom home within the United States. And it started searching for deals on 2-bedroom homes in the US, went to Zillow, and then it had a bunch of listings. And then it was like, I guess I have to go through each one of these one by one to see if it's a good deal. And I had to stop it. It was looking at a 2-bedroom house in Syracuse, New York for $1,000. And the cockroaches and mold were climbing out of my laptop monitor. If you're on the YouTube version, you're seeing it. But hey, it was doing it. It was inching its way towards solving the problem. And they've got videos of it booking flights, ordering pizzas. And their approach, again, is a little bit different. It's on the browser layer, so it can manipulate whatever it needs to. And then, again, I don't know if it's creating a snapshot and doing image recognition, or if it's just pulling the code out of the page that it visits and then trying to interpret how to interact with it. But it worked, and it was pretty cool. Wave your hands and let the AI do something for you. That's HyperWrite.
That's really smart. I want to dig in on it. That sounds really fun. And honestly, it's the promise of AutoGPT that hadn't really been fulfilled by anyone else. Before we move on to the news, I have to say one more dumb thing I did with AI this week, which I think you'll appreciate. So if you didn't see this, Midjourney, obviously, if you don't know Midjourney, definitely spend time learning about it. Midjourney, I still believe, is the easiest way to really open your eyes to what AI art can do. It's improved immensely from when it launched. Just this week, they launched a new way to zoom out, right? So one of the big things about Midjourney 5.2 was you could have a photo and you could zoom out, meaning you could get a wider shot of the image that you were looking at.
And just to contextualize that, if you've never made AI art, this isn't the image already exists and you were zoomed in on a portion of it and now the camera's going to pull back. This is you create an image, you feed it a drawing, and you say, zoom out, which means the AI has to figure out what exists beyond the image that you're seeing and actually make it work, whether it's a photograph or a oil painting, doesn't matter. It has to match the style and let it make sense. So it is hallucinating the borders of whatever you're zooming out on. It's incredible technology that we now take for granted already.
Exactly. So with this, now you can zoom in one direction. So basically, not only zoom out, but you can pan to the right or the left of the image that you have. And this came out yesterday. Kevin and I were texting about it, and Kevin was like, you should try to make it with AI dogs playing poker. And I was like, I am on it. I am on it right away. So I created an image in Midjourney, which you'll see here. actually pretty good version of dogs playing poker, right? So you have 5 dogs. They all look, they're pretty happy. One's a little shorty dog, but they're enjoying their poker night. Weirdly, you'll notice a theme here. There's a lot of candles, and I'm not sure where candles fit in, but maybe instead of drinks, they decided to put candles because this normally you would see these dogs maybe throwing some brews back, doing something. So I said, okay, zoom out to the right. So I kept going to the right on the image. So the first image, you see it adds in a couple dogs who are kind of in the peanut gallery. One dog who many people have pointed out in the back looks like there's something weird going on with that dog's face. I also love the dog at the bottom right who looks like he's, again, pretty drunk and holding up a candle that should be a beer, right? That definitely should be a beer.
The dog in the back is the argument against having purebred breeding anymore. That is muzzle coming out of an open mouth. We can't have that.
Okay, so then I zoomed out to the right further, and this is where it gets a little sad. So there's a dog who's clearly watching other dogs. He wants to play a board game. He's sitting there with a board game, and he's wondering why nobody wants to play with him. So I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's telling a little story, and that is why Midjourney has said we want to open up the door to storytellers. So this dog is very sad. I was saying he looks like he's playing Settlers of Catan, and nobody in this candle bar wants to play with him, which is a bummer. So then I go to the next stage, and clearly we have 2 dogs who are enjoying watching the sad dog watching the other dogs watch the poker game. So these 2 dogs are like probably laughing at the sad dog.
We told him we would play Catan with him. What a sucker.
Exactly.
You think Bernie's going to drink that candle?
Then an amazing thing happens. Another poker game appears, and now there are dogs look like they're from like Gangs of New York. They're wearing top hats. So this is the beginning of the top hat dogs. The top hat dogs show up, and they're obviously at a separate table, right? So now we're in a much larger like game parlor of some sort. So the top dog hats appear, and then basically what happens is you'll see in the next 2 to 3 images, it's just top hat dogs all the way down. So we go further, and then we get to 6 top hat dogs.
You thought the segregation in the game hall was board game dog versus poker dog? It's hats, no hats. That is how the seating is assigned. I love the dogs with hats, by the way. I love that it decided to add that. It's so much better. They're clearly the bootleggers here. That's why there's no alcohol on that side of the room. They have to drink candles because all the fancy moonshiners have their caps on.
Smart. That's and underneath the hats are where all the drinks are, so they remove them, take a drink and put them back. So anyway, what was cool about this is I think I could have kept going and gotten more top hat dogs. The difference is when I did, if you remember a couple weeks ago, I had a zoom out of Guy Fieri to try to zoom out further from him as Batman. And it broke after about 4 zoom outs, which makes sense considering you're getting further and further away. This kind of kept going.
Now, Gav, when you pan around, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just you click a button and it automatically generates whatever direction you tell it. You don't get to feed it a new prompt or say what you would like to be in that new section, correct?
No, you don't. And that is something that's better often with Stable Diffusion, which you can play around a little bit more. You could be a little more specific. I have a feeling they're going to start layering in much more kind of, let's call them professional tools into Midjourney because they want people to be able to make more and better things with it. And I think part of that is control over what you make. And I think that's going to be a really big next journey for Midjourney.
I think I've seen a lot of cool art created just by using the zoom out feature. I'm sure people will iterate and use the panning feature as well. And what I'm also seeing is the hybrid workflow of I sketch something in MS Paint or on my iPad and I send it to Midjourney and I get a better version of it back. Then I zoom out, then I take that and I put that into Stable Diffusion where I have more control and then I finish it in Photoshop. It's so interesting now that on the bleeding edge of all this technology, people are establishing their pipelines and their workflows. And we've said since episode 1, AI is not going to take your job necessarily. It's going to be a human wielding AI that's gunning for it. And you're seeing that now as people are making really killer, beautiful stuff.
Yes.
And they're cranking it out super fast. And people are like, wow, how'd you make that? And when people start asking that, that is someone's secret little tool in their tool belt. Like how they made that. They may share it, they may not. But they're likely leveraging tools like this to make something that has people scratching their heads and being very impressed. So
100%.
Definitely take note whenever Midjourney releases something new.
Top hat dogs, come in. come into my life, top hat dogs. I want to start putting top hats on my dogs here. So anyway,
This is an official request for Top Hat Dogs. If we could get a little engagement from you on the Twitter feeds, that'd be great, Top Hat Dogs. Thank you. Gavin, I think it's time for the
new graphic
Story Blocks audio.
All right, Kevin, the big news this week. There's a lot of big news. We're going to run through a bunch of stuff pretty quickly. I think one thing I want to touch on up top is that OpenAI went on a world tour. So if you saw the video a couple weeks ago of Sam Altman in India and all these different places around the world.
Sam, can you just going to startups? I mean, as you know, we've got a very vibrant startup ecosystem in India. Specifically focused on AI, are there spaces where you see, let's say, a startup from India building, you can build on the models, be it ChatGPT and many others. But if you want to build foundational models, how should we think about that? Where is it that a team from India, 3 super smart engineers with, not 100 million, but let's say 10 million, could actually build something truly substantial?
Look, the way this works is we're going to tell you it's totally hopeless to compete with us on training foundation models. You shouldn't try, and it's your job to, try anyway.
What they were doing is what you would call in management circles a listening tour, right? Like the idea of they went around and they were talking to a lot of people. There were some clips of Sam Altman being interviewed on Indian TV and all these other things.
He's a rock star.
Yeah.
They were throwing rose petals at him. He was kissing babies and ibos. Just, come give me a robot dog.
So they put out a pretty interesting report about the ways that people around the world were using AI. And it's a lot of the same stuff we've heard before. They're using it to do interesting things in business. They're being creative with it. They're also concerned about AI safety. They're concerned about what it can do. The thing I thought was interesting about this is the idea that this is hard to sometimes imagine when you're in your own little bubble, whether you're in the States or you're in some other country. You don't get a sense of how global this got, how fast. And I think that this showed me, this is worldwide, and it got worldwide in months. And I think that's, again, talking about the scale of how this tool and tools are affecting the world at large. That is a way that it really brings it forward. You really get a sense of, wow, everyone is using this. It's not just my friends or my family or you and I. This is a worldwide phenomenon, and we have to think of it like that from the get-go.
Yeah, we talked about, I think it was in February, they announced the milestone. ChatGPT was the first tool to reach 100 million monthly active users the quickest. It was exponentially faster than anything else. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even TikTok, didn't matter. ChatGPT raced to that. But as you just said, take a step back. 100 million users active every month. And that was in February when people were still searching, how do I get access? Where do I get access? It is a global phenomenon. And that means that OpenAI has to align properly. And some of the stuff they talked about was obviously making sure that English isn't the only language that it can interpret in. So they're beefing up support for additional language. I think that's great. Accessibility across the board is phenomenal. They did mention, though, aligning the model to make sure that it is in line with cultural sensitivities.
This is where it gets tricky. A hugely important point. And I think that one thing we saw with social networks was there was the Arab Spring. There was all this really incredible moment of, wow, social networks are going to change everything because they are able to really move this idea forward that everybody can think for themselves. And it ultimately, the social networks want to be in places. The places have rules. There are certain countries that we all know have very draconian rules about what can be said. I think this is going to be a real trade-off because we've seen ChatGPT be hobbled in certain ways. And when we say hobbled, there's certain things that we like to do with it for fun that they've pulled out of it because they don't want to have the ability to role play certain things or do certain stuff. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation about what version of ChatGPT does China get? What version of ChatGPT does Saudi Arabia get? And these are all conversations that happen with social media. It's going to be a very fascinating thing if we end up in a world where ChatGPT or some form of it is the oracle of information, which it could be. Obviously, there's a lot of problems with it so far. And it's directly censored in some specific way.
They also did a study, and every little place that they went, and they showed that 100,000 people from 16 countries, decent sized study, 72% believe that AI is going to have a positive impact on society. However, 42% believe that AI could pose a threat to humanity. And people are mostly worried and concerned about the potential for AI to be used for malicious purposes. So everybody globally is having to reconcile with this technology arriving. I would put that sentiment on point. I'm curious your thoughts. I'd put that on point with the anecdotal conversations that I'm having in my bubble. I feel like, 72, 75% are really optimistic about this thing, but about half are concerned that it could be just doomsday. We could be manufacturing our demise.
I'd say that's about right as well. I think we're in a place where it's hard because nobody really knows. And this is where it gets confusing because unlike almost everything else, there are answers out there. And if you do the studies on it, you can figure it out. We're really in like a who knows, we'll see kind of mode. Now, that said, the 70% of positive change is probably a great thing. ChatGPT, I think, is a positive overall. But we are moving forward, as we've said 1,000 times before. We are moving forward. One person who sees that is, who is it, Kevin? Who's the person that's seeing this very clearly and is
I'm gonna hate this. I'm gonna hate this so much.
You can do it. You can do it.
It's me. It's Arnold. It's Arnold. You got
What
to
is
get
your
to
Arnold? He's got something
get to the
stuck.
singularity. No, come on, Drebin. Do it. Come on. Come on.
Come on. It's
Come
me,
on.
Arnold.
It's me.
Okay. So
Hey,
anyway.
Arnold. Hey, Arnold.
Ooh. Actually, that's a good character we should bring up is A. Arnold.
A.
A.
Arnold.
could be our guest next week. That'd be fun.
There was an event, Gavin, called An Evening with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was in Los Angeles recently. By the way, he's 75.
I know.
Doesn't look a day over 73. I don't know how he does it. The man is half magic, and I think maybe half machine. He was asked, what do you think about artificial intelligence or Skynet? And he basically said, it's happening, that the movie predicted it. And he gave a lot of credit to James Cameron, but Schwarzenegger believes. He believes that we are on the path to Skynet.
So this is a perfect example of what we just talked about. There is a sense of, if you remember Skynet was a bad thing. Skynet was the thing that took control of all machines and decided to kill humanity and let humans be. Arnold's just like, we're there. We're there. And it's like, yes, we're not that far away from there. We're not there. We're not there right now. But there is like a hop, skip, and a jump from now. And even Arnold recognizes it as somebody. Now, granted, it's the anniversary of the Terminator. Arnold also might be recognizing an opportunity to pop in the news cycle. So nice work, Arnold. But even he...
Yeah, he wanted that
is
AI
a,
for humans
celebrity.
boost. That's what he was hurting for. He's talking to his agents. He's like, how do I get it? How do I get Gavin
Exactly.
and Kevin to talk about me on the podcast? We all remember the scenes from Terminator. I hope we do, of the cybernetic foot crushing the skull and blasting human beings apart with their laser pistols. Okay, maybe not the sci-fi future that we want, but let's take a little detour, Gavin, and talk about some sci-fi that these guys want to try. And it's a segment that we're just now calling These Guys Sci-Fi Try. Gav, what sci-fi do you want to try?
Oh my God.
Watch the
that's
wheels
staying
fall
in.
off in real time, dude.
That's staying in for sure. All right. So one of the things we talked about is in sci-fi movies, there's been all these things that have been invented. A lot of them have come true, right? Like people talk on Star Trek all the time about the communicator. It's basically an iPhone. We were asking each other about what are the things we would really love to see. I'll start, and I think this is one that we'll jump off with because you know this. Man, I wish 3D printers were better. I expected 3D. I expected 3D printers to be, by this point, like printing me a hamburger in my house or giving.
I was going to say,
or even
Gavin, you must have in 2010. You would be screaming if in 2023 you couldn't just whisper to a box and out came a steak.
100%. To me, it was like, it was easy. That was going to be the thing. And it turns out it wasn't the thing. It turns out what they're really good at printing is little miniature vinyl toys or whatever. And they're still doing
Warhammer
it. So
figurines.
Anyway,
Yeah, it's something that could clog a whale's blowhole, something that a turtle can choke on. Do you know, I had an Ultimaker Pro. And do you know what the single coolest thing, and I printed a lot of stuff, Terminator heads, Tesla Cybertruck. The coolest thing, the most useful thing I actually printed, aside from a chip clip, a toothpaste cap. $3,000 on a machine, ungodly amounts of dollars on PVC and PVA polyvinyl acetate to load into the 3D printer to calibrate it. And April was gone on vacation, and when she came back, the toothpaste had a new, freshly 3D printed glow-in-the-dark cap on it. Mwah! Science!
That's amazing. All right, what about you?
Terrible.
What's something you wish from a sci-fi movie would come true?
I love Back to the Future. The second one, to me, better than the first. Mostly because of the technology, the flying drone that would walk your dog for you. You could fire people over fax machine. There was a whole bunch of cool tech, but the one that I really loved, Lorraine, Grandma Lorraine puts a little dehydrated Pizza Hut pizza into a hydrator and says, "Hydrate level 4, please." And then seconds later, bing, out comes a full-size fresh Pizza Hut pizza. Yes, please.
I think that's a really good point. Also, this goes to there's another thing that I had on my list, which was just like a food generator, which is kind of a 3D printer or a rehydrator. There was a promise in all sorts of science fiction that I read when I was a kid that you'd be able to like just basically tell it to make something and then it would just pop that thing out. That seems like it should be here now. That has to happen on the molecular level. And so you have to really get deep, deep down on that. That's one of those things that like maybe could be possible, but I don't see it happening yet.
The HP printer ink versus printer trade-off. Are we going to have sacks of powders and gels that a little plasma laser is going to reconstitute into the food form that we want? Because I know where this is. This is 50 years from now. I'm going to spend $40,000 on something that could make me a single grape, and it's probably going to have a seed in it. Great. This is 3D printing all over again.
That's exactly right. It's 3D printing
I choke
all
on
over
it and
again.
die.
The last thing I'll say that I've wanted forever and may be impossible, but based on physics, is teleportation. That obviously in Star Trek, there's the beam down. There's a great book called The Fold in which they talk about a way to fold space and you can walk through into things. To me, this was always the dream move, was that you show up and you're living in the woods by yourself, whatever, you're having your wood life. You walk through something and suddenly you're in New York City, right? And the idea that how this would change how people live, how it would change people need to drive, all that stuff. I feel like that's forever away and we're just never going to get there, but who knows? What about you?
3 seashells.
Of course, of course.
If you haven't seen Demolition Man, there's an amazing scene where John Spartan violates the verbal morality code so that he can get paper notifications out of the wall because he does not know how to use the 3 seashells. And there have been blog posts and Reddit forum discussions about how these 3 seashells work. We do not know, but we know you go into the restroom, and at the tail end, no pun intended, of that process, the 3 seashells are all you need to completely eradicate any mess. It's very hygienic. I have no idea how it works, but I want them, Gavin.
Why do you think there were 3? It would make sense to have the seashell, but the third, is there like a 3-step process? Is one part the wash, one part the disinfectant, and one part the blow dryer?
Wet, dry, aperitif. Or I guess it's wet, dry pillow mint, like a little something to send you off.
A little
Maybe
smell
choose
of
a scent.
a happy smell like for the rest of your day, something that can make you feel good.
There's no way this episode gets surfaced in any algorithm. We're going to have to cut all of this out. We got foot fetishes. We got bum mints. There's no way this gets seen by anybody, and not for the usual reasons.
That's exactly right. All right, we should move on here. There's a couple more big news stories. Obviously, one of the biggest news stories right now is Twitter is being rate limited by Elon, by the people at Twitter. And ostensibly,
Gavin, what's a rate limit? What does that even mean?
Good question. Thank you for asking, a young AI for Humans listener. A rate limit means you are able to, as a user of the service, you are only able to use so much of it until it is not going to deliver more stuff to you. For people that do not pay for Twitter, meaning if you're not a Twitter Blue user, you can only see 600 messages before you get rate limited, which is not very much when you're on Twitter and they come pretty fast and furious and you're scrolling. This also has a kind of deep-seated underbelly that involves AI. First of all, Kevin, have you been rate limited on Twitter?
I think in my younger and more formidable years, I probably would have been rate limited immediately, but I pay Uncle Elon the $8, so I do have the sort of extended cap. And one thing that happened was the rate limits came down out of nowhere. If you listen to last week's episode, Elon and Twitter were making some changes because they were claiming AI was scraping all their data. They eventually shut off access to getting any of Twitter's content unless you're logged in. So they were doing all these steps in the name of AI, these big companies scraping their data to make these language models. The rate limits happened. They became a laughing stock by their own communities. Even like the Elon brigades, which get really bumped up in the algorithm, even they were saying like, we're not so sure about this one, buddy. And very quickly they tried to increase the limits because a lot of people were being shut out of using the app, the primary thing you would want. And meanwhile, people are trying to jump ship to Blue Sky, which is Jack Dorsey's Twitter competitor. They had such an influx of users, they had to slow down and then eventually stop signups. That was happening, and simultaneously Elon is tweeting about how he's doing the world a favor. People need to get off their devices and go outside and touch grass. It's a great spectacle. It's wonderful noise, but I think this ended up actually harming Twitter quite a bit because, granted, little anecdotal with my filtered bubble, admittedly, but a lot of people leapt ship during this mishap and went over to Blue Sky. So do you think, Gavin, that this was about AI? Do you think this is about Elon not paying Google for the servers, not paying their bandwidth bill?
I think there's a couple things happening here. Oh, also we should mention Mark Zuckerberg is launching Threads soon. Facebook is launching a Twitter competitor, I think this Thursday, the day this comes out. So that'll happen as well. There's two things happening, I think, here. One is, we've talked about this in the show before, AI feeds are very valuable, right? Feeds of information, especially a feed like Twitter's information that is getting real-time information, is incredibly valuable to large language models. And yes, there is some truth to Elon wanting to protect that in some form or another. That said, there's also a very funny thread that has come out based on an article, I think that was in The Verge, which basically said that June 30th of this year was when there was a massive bill due for Twitter to pay to Google. And what it seems like the conventional wisdom on this story is that, sure, AI was a good boogeyman for this, but what Elon is really trying to do, and has been trying to do for a while, was make Twitter much more efficient money-wise. And one of the ways to make it much more efficient money-wise is not pay a giant hosting bill to Google every week. So I think, or every month, I think that is probably at the heart of this. But as we said with the Reddit issue, as we said with anything involving this stuff, going forward, data is valuable. Your data that you and I both create as users of these services, that's what's going to power the LLMs of the future, the next stage of the LLM. And we are going to see these companies pivot from being more of an advertiser-driven company to being more of a data-driven company. In fact, what's interesting about Threads, the new Mark Zuckerberg Twitter clone, there's been a lot of news in the last day that they're asking for just a ton of data to get from you. But this is going to drive the LLMs and the AIs of the future. And they want to know, A, who you are, but also B, they want to know exactly what you're saying, how you're saying it in real time, so that can power the AI coming out soon. One last thing before we move on to our demo, OpenAI shut off their browser plugin, meaning that it was using Bing to go browse the internet and return results. And one reason they said they did this was because it was bringing back all of the information that was on the site that it was going to browse, which kind of is what you want if you're doing this, but it also gets involved with these really funky business models. Because if I'm the New York Times, or I'm AI for Humans in a future world where we've got a really awesome newsletter coming, but all of my content gets served up in the ChatGPT window, what need do I have as a user to go to the website? None, right? So they're going to have to create almost like a preview profile pane of some sort, which is going to make you click through. And I think that is going to be a really tricky thing to figure out.
I'm good. I'm going to go to another AI model that doesn't care or have the guardrails. That's the crazy thing about this, is that there's going to be an open source model that, you know what, it's just good enough, and it'll bypass your paywall. It'll give me all of the context from the article that I need in whatever format that I want. Thank you for feeding the machine for me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, you're right. There will be people who do that. Now, imagine if Google doesn't do that. And I mean, like OpenAI, say it gets as big as Google, or Google gets to be the main player. There is going to be a lot of money fund and traffic funding through this thing. There will always be people that want to use the open source model and will go to it, but it will be a lesser product. So if you put these guardrails on things that your parents are going to go to or anybody else is going to go to, at least it allows the content to still be valued. Because I think my question to you, Kevin, would be is this: how in the future if that happens, how is content valuable, period? What makes content valuable? Whether you're a writer or you're a video maker or you're a podcaster, like where does content become valuable?
I think it's interesting. It's at the source of ingestion is what I want to say. I wonder if there are 3 or 4 major players in here, rather than them scraping the data off another site, they're going to have so much influence that I'll be incentivized as a content creator, whether it's for my raw data that I'm putting into the machine that is correct and verifiable, whether it's for the context that I'm providing that maybe the language model isn't as good at, the humorous and hilarious spin that you and I put on something, Gavin, the humanity. I wonder if we will actually be working directly for the machines insofar as we are going to put our info into their language models, give it to them, and in return, when it uses our input for someone else's output, we get a small pittance. We get a fraction of a penny, or Bezos sends us a food pellet directly into our mouth. Is that where it's going to go?
My theory is this. I think that personality and voice is going to be one of the only valuable things going forward. And what you're getting at here, I think, is this idea that you are a person. Anybody listening to this has a personality. They have their own value. They have their who they are. They can bring forth their own thing. This goes to the idea of everybody's a creator. Everybody's thinking of things, but everybody does have a unique personality. Like you are special. I know as people like this whole thing about people say, you're not special, you're this. Everybody's different. Every single person is different. Everybody has their own thing. And that is probably what's going to be valuable going forward. And the less you focus on that and the more you focus on doing the rote, monotonous stuff that happens in your day-to-day life, that's where you're going to be in trouble, because that's where the machine will get so much better than you, and you will not be able to compete in any way. If you are a unique individual, if you are, like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I still believe that Napoleon Dynamite is a really example of a film that came out of one person's brain. And there are all sorts of films like this, or books or movies or music, that only one person could make because it's that person's experience. It goes the same for this. You are your own experience, and you have to bring that forward, because that, to me, is the thing that you can drive value for yourself in the future.
And I think it's only going to become even more valuable, Gavin, because if you look at how, let's say, homogenized language is becoming, in part because of these AI systems, when everybody is relying on the same language model to give them the top 5 things to tweet, or 3 inspirational quotes, or whatever to make their emails or their blogs stand out, everything is going to start looking the same. It's going to be a very beige internet. And so the more you can have your own unique voice and your own unique perspective, I think there's going to be more value there. I also can't wait to figure out the perfect prompt to emulate you. You know what I mean? Whatever makes you, dear listener, think you're so special and unique, I can't wait to distill it down into a weight form and then feed it into a language model so that I can have you on demand across all mediums in perpetuity. Thank you so much.
And make it 10% funnier and 10% more bold. Give it a little bit more kick up. If that person would be able to go into the meeting and tell your boss, I need a raise. Not you, but that person could. So we're going to see how that comes out. It is time for our very special demo of the day. Kevin, today, what are we diving into?
Ooh, our demo of the day, Gavin. Let me make room for the title sequence. Hold on. Okay. Our demo of the day is actually, we gotta give credit where it's due. The same gentleman who created HyperWrite, Matt Schumer, released something for free just the other week. It's on GitHub. It is open source, which means you can download it. You can see how it works, how this particular sausage is made. It's GPT-Author. The promise of GPT-Author, Gavin, is that by changing one little prompt, one little string of text in this line of code, you can mash play, and for about $4 and about 5 to 10 minutes of your time, and by your time I mean just letting your computer do its thing, you will have a 10 to 25 chapter book hallucinated on whatever topic in whatever genre that you would like. And I tried it out and it worked.
So I have to say one thing about this. I have a lot of authors in my life, a lot of people that write, writers well. And like, I want to make sure everybody knows that this is the beginning stages of something we knew was coming. And we'll get into talking about what it does here and why it's doing it, and the exploration of AI created content, especially books that Kevin and I have seen exist for at least the last year, probably 6 months at least. It also I would be remiss if I didn't say that my wife has said this many times. It does not have that spark sometimes that we talked about. It is using cliched stuff that it has collected in a group, and it oftentimes is creating a very like, oh, this thing again. Like you've heard these themes before. That said, a lot of works of art have been doing this for a while, and it's reading into that. So let's get into this. So,
Have you seen Avatar by any chance?
Yeah.
I love
Beautiful
the movie.
water,
Huge,
beautiful water.
huge James Cameron fan, but I digress. I want to point out a couple things. The code that was written here is really set up to make fantasy novels. What's wild to me about this direction that we're heading with AI and with these language models being able to carry out the tasks that you ask of it, if you look at the code, I'm not a programmer by any stretch, but you can look at the code and it is in most parts plain English. And that's not to take away what Matt did here. He structured something very elegantly. Basically, it looks at your prompt and sets up the AI to generate a bunch of different titles and plots. It sets up a reviewer to go and pick whichever one is going to be the best and generate a title off of it. Then it sets up someone to create chapters based off that title. And then it sets up an author to go in and write those things. So it's creating these little auto GPT-ish personalities that can handle specific portions of the book creation task, including give me a description for the cover and send that description off to an image generation service so that it could bake it into the ebook. And when you look at the code, you can see in plain English what it is setting out to do. So if you wanted it to write you a book that's not fantasy, it literally says a role here. You are a creative assistant that generates engaging fantasy novel plots. Guess what you would change if you wanted to be a self-help guide or some sort of how-to? You can go in there and change it, and that's exactly what I did in order to have it help hallucinate our juicy exclusive today, Gavin.
Okay, what do we got? Let's hear the prompt.
I changed the prompt to be a thrilling tale about Hot Dog City, a city made of hot dogs with hot dog inhabitants that is coming face to face with a new evil. I tried a couple different variations of the prompt, and the one that I loved that came out after a short, I don't know, $16 later of experimentation is, Gavin, the Great Condogment Battle for Hot Dog Haven.
Condogment. All right. That went on way too long. I stopped at the Great Condogment Battle. Is it the Great Condogment Battle for Hot Dog Haven? There are two battles?
It is. Let me open up the actual ebook because I don't think there's a colon in it. It says the title of the book. Oh, there is a colon. Ah!
Okay, all right.
Okay, so the cover art is a beautiful skyscraper flanked by the longest, most delectable dogs you could imagine, with several mustard drizzled hot dogs leading up, guiding your eye into this monolithic tower that represents all of Hot Dog Haven. And the full title of the book, Gavin, is The Great Condogment, Battle for Hot Dog Haven. If you'd like to hear an abridged version of Chapter 1 of The Great Condogment Battle for Hot Dog Haven, Gavin, I've got it for you.
I would love to hear it. Bring it on. Let's hear it.
Vibrations danced through the evening air, soft reverberations that only Frank, with his heightened sensory perception unique to his kind, could fathom. He was more than a mere meat link in a bun. His lifeblood pulsed to the rhythm of his urbane culinary utopia, Hot Dog Haven. Below, the edible metropolis with its ketchup-gilded rooftops and mustard-cobbled streets lay sprawled in moments of fading twilight splendor. A hazy tranquility masked the turmoil simmering beneath, like a well-crusted pie ready to explode. Hiding his plump, bun-clad figure in the shadowy contours of an abandoned alleyway, Frank felt cornered. He was like a pot-bound chipolata fraught with panic, left too long to boil in its own fear. Closing in were the health food fanatics. A malignant cult clothed in the righteous guise of nutritional enthusiasts. Jaws frothing with sinister green kale smoothies, hands clenched around homemade granola clubs, their zealotry eclipsed any benign health-conscious motive. Frank had just slipped from their grasp, his butter-glazed bun providing the necessary slick to evade their tofu-hardened hands. In the wake of the mounting chaos, a specter from the past began to fester. The mustard marauder, once a guiding father figure, had been corrupted, his golden essence darkened by an insatiable hunger for dominion. His deceptively simple scheme was as bitter as a too vinegary pickled gherkin. To reduce the denizens of Hot Dog Haven to mere puppets in his grand performance, stripped of their flavorful autonomy and left to wither under his dictatorial reign.
Wow. Now that's... If that wasn't setup on top of trope, on top of everything.
The funniest thing to me about that is, did you ever read William S. Burroughs? William S. Burroughs is a very famous writer. Definitely, if you don't know who he is, check him out. He's from the Beat generation. But he did this thing, I can't remember what the name of it was. He would basically take a bunch of words, cut them up, and then rearrange them and make sentences out of them. It's a little bit like that, which is funny because that's a little bit like what AI tools are doing. Okay, so I think I understood what was going on there, but it was not that coherent. One thing I would love to hear from you, if you know this, is it structuring the novel in any sort of way? So, like, obviously, I've learned a lot about story structure over the course of time, where it's the hero's journey. There's a lot of different pathways to structure, 3-act structure, 5-act structure you can work with when you're doing a narrative. What is in the back end of this that is helping make it make sense? Is there anything?
Gavin, I read all 36 pages of the Great Condogment, Battle for Hot Dog Haven, so I can tell you, yeah, there's some structure. Some. I'm not saying a lot. What I found was that just like in that beginning where it's trying to set up the world and set up the character does, right? You get Hot Dog City. And by the way, I chopped out some stuff in here. I made some edits. However, what it does, though, is it starts introducing, like, out of nowhere, the Mustard Marauder. Okay, who's this Mustard Marauder? Well, he's got a sinister plan. And then, Gavin, like 2 pages later, it brings up this.
The city that had once been warmed by camaraderie and shared sustenance fell prey to a sinister chill. From the sizzling streets of Sausage Square to the farthest reaches of Bun Boulevard, the atmospheric squeeze altered the vibrant ambiance that once thrummed through the city. Whispers curled around corners, slithered up spiral staircases, and swarmed bustling bistros.
It took 22 seconds to say nothing, right? This is me in 6th grade trying to sound smart. Look at all these words I can throw in there. But it's okay, so it's getting there. We know that there's something else going on, right? This is forget the guys with the granola bats and the kale shake coming from their mouth, and forget the Mustard Marauder. There's something else.
Fear simmered under the cloud of confusion, bubbling up from the city's underbelly and seeping into its heart. Was the icy grip tightening around them a mere atmospheric blip, or was it an omen of foul happenings?
What is going on? What's happening on Bun Boulevard?
Is there suddenly a global warming story happening here?
Oh, I like that.
Hidden beneath the mix of salts and spices that made their city so grand was stirring. This preservative-laced phantom was preparing to erupt, churning within the city's bedrock, beneath the streets on which generations of hot dogs had roamed freely. The city, his cherished hot dog haven, hovered on the brink of something seismic. His city braced itself for the eruption of the condiment conflict. His heart pounded from fear, yes, but also from a steadfast resolve, as the beloved city of Hot Dog Haven trembled on the edge of a battle that would echo through sizzling grills and bustling delis for ages to come.
What is it?
It sounds like maybe Hot Dog Godzilla. It sounds like someone's going to come out of the ground. Do you have an answer to this?
Therein lies the rub. I don't want to spoil the book, Gavin.
Fair enough.
Because I actually want some poor soul out there to go through all 37 pages of it. I will say it starts to just throw all these different characters and conflicts at you. And then it sets up a solve. Maybe a mysterious sausage sage.
The air pulsed with the potency of iconic Hot Dog Haven spices and resonated with the crusty whispers of long enlisted condiment codes. The sausage sorcerer, as ancient and flavorful as the city's lore itself, emanated a suave air of wisdom, so tangible that it rendered the silence within the sanctuary almost audible.
Okay, whatever the hell that means. I will say, sausage sorcerer.
It's amazing at alliteration. Like it learned alliteration a little too well.
Frank, great name for a protagonist of Hot Dog City. Frank isn't alone in this one. He's got a whole fellowship with him as he goes on this journey. And then Would you like a snippet of the epic battle, Gavin?
I'd love to hear it. Let's bring it.
Yet the most menacing were the Marauder's own forces, his marauding chili cheese minions. Clad in vibrant hues of molten cheese and armed with chili-flavored daggers, they served as the ominous harbingers of the Marauder's rule. With seasoned finesse and fiery determination, they fought fiercely. The tangy flavor of resistance, the spicy heat of their unified stand, painted the battlefield with a vibrant palette of courageous hues. The Sausage Squad slashed bravely through the opposing foes, while the Bun Brigade maneuvered strategically, ensuring each meat-filled warrior was ensconced within the protective embrace of their crust-armored ranks.
All right. That's enough.
Okay, I think
That's
we get
enough.
it. Okay.
You get it. It says a whole lot, but it doesn't really say anything, yet occasionally you get the Sausage Warrior or the Bun Brigade, and it makes you smile.
No, I think okay. There's a couple things about this. One is there are moments of imagery that are, again, putting things together that you wouldn't expect, right? And obviously, Hot Dog City is something that came out originally out of our brains. So it's not like Hot Dog City was invented by the AI, but it took the idea of what Hot Dog City is and then kind of crafted interesting things like the Burger Brigade or the Sausage Sage. And I think that part of it's fascinating. It clearly has no ability yet to create a comprehensive narrative that is really kind of driving through this. And mostly when you're reading this, if you were reading this as a work of fiction, you would 100% think this was written by an AI or somebody who just didn't understand writing. And I've read some bad books that haven't been published. This is worse than most of them, except for you might encourage that person to be like, well, you've got some interesting metaphors. You've got some interesting visuals, but it may be the beginning stages again. There is a thing that people talk about in the movies all the time, the uncanny valley, which is the closer you get to a person, the weirder and stranger it feels, which in the perfect example of this was when Polar Express, the Tom Hanks movie, came out, like how dead-eyed those kids looked, like they were clearly CGI. I believe there's going to be a pretty significant uncanny valley with this sort of thing, that the last 5% may be really hard to cross. And it'll be interesting to see like what that 5% is. Now, could this be a starting point for an author who knew what they're doing and edit it together? Maybe. I mean, this might be further away from that, but I do think there is some sort of hybrid that could work. But as a product that you spit out, that the AI spit out, it feels like it's a ways away.
I could already today, if this were to be productized, I could see this being a fun novelty, something that a child would want to play with and give it a title for a story or hand draw the superhero and let the machine interpret the backstory of that character and let them create a bunch of characters and then say, go play. And then it gives them a real-time narrative. And maybe their animatronic teddy bear is telling them the tale and not Gash. Fine. But I could see that world existing today. I think it's passable enough and could be prompted and then refined to be silly enough and probably safe enough even so that a child could have a good time with this. Where I see this quickly going is, again, this took $4 and it took about 5 to 10 minutes. So if you wanted to craft a narrative about a billionaire submarine disaster, let's say something is popping up in the news. You say, here's a bunch of articles of information. Now write me a thrilling tale about this, that, the other. I'm not saying it would be feature complete. It might be 90% of the way there. And as you were saying, that last 5-10% might be really tough to get to, but you can pour the human on it and shore it up and work with the AI to crank out novels so fast. We talked earlier about closed internet versus open internet. As the lane gets flooded, and I mean everything, as TikTok to YouTube to Amazon products and ebooks, even Spotify, there's going to be AI music that is just being generated by the millisecond. It is going to be a flood of this stuff. And there's going to be a certain amount of signal to the noise that humans actually want. And there's going to be a lot of diligence required on the platform creators. Those who own and operate the channels that distribute all this content, they're going to have to very quickly be able to identify the AI content accurately and then give you, the user, a choice. Do you want this or not? Or else these sites and services are going to become unusable.
100%. And I think that the flood is already started. We talked about it with Visla, and that's the beginning of that side. And this is a real problem already on Amazon. These ebooks are everywhere. By the way, even if you're an author, know what these things are doing, right? Because I think one thing you have to be aware is there's people out there doing this now. What we try to do is bring forward the idea of how this stuff is changing the world that everybody works in.
If you're an author and let's say you wanted to create a fantasy novel about Hot Dog City, maybe you could run it through an AI tool like this, and maybe Sausage Sorcerer would pop out and you go, ah, yeah, that's a character that I want. Let me put a little bit of my human sauce on that Sausage Sorcerer and make it amazing.
They'll never understand Hot Dog City. The AI will never get inside this brain. They'll never know what really happens there.
That's right. Now, Gavin, what if someone wants to read the entire Battle for Hot Dog Haven ebook? How can we make that available to our dearest listeners and subscribers?
Guess what? We have a new deal. We're putting this in paper now, or on paper. We're putting this in the podcast. By Thursday, we will have our newsletter up and running. It will be the beginning stages of the newsletter, but we are planning on it. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you can get a free ebook. You can get a free copy of Hot Dog. What's it called again? Give us the title.
The Great Condogment Battle for Hot Dog Haven.
Thank you. Thank you. So subscribe to our newsletter, which we will make sure is on our socials. We'll make sure we have information out that we can get out to you. Subscribe to that. If you subscribe, we'll send you Hot Dog Haven. Before we go, I do want to mention always, please leave us reviews and all that sort of stuff. We have one 5-star review, a new 5-star review, Kevin, which I found was very good. Do you want me to try to tell you which this one is and then make up one with our 1-5 and a lie?
Now, I know which one is real, and it's so perfect that why would you ever task an AI with trying to top it? So please, if you want to do the honors, Gavin.
Speaking of topping, the AI, speaking of toppings, this is from JamPow2, and the subject line is, it's the cheese pizza of podcasts. And then in the body, all it says is, not too greasy. Which, please, that's all we want. That's all we want is the cheese pizza of podcasts. That's what we're looking for. Not too greasy. It's not too heavy. You have a slice, you feel good. Don't eat 6 of them because you might get sick. But if you have the slice every week, you can live with that and really enjoy it. So thank you, JamPow2.
If you want to get a shout out on the show, it's very simple. Leave us a 5-star review on the old Apple podcast and go ahead and rate us 5 stars on Spotify as well. We do appreciate every ounce of engagement that we get out there, from YouTube subscribes to comments to clicking of the bell to be alerted when we upload something new. And we got a new platform to engage on as well, because Sir Gavin has launched the official AI for Humans TikTok.
That's right. So if you're on TikTok, which, is super fun and obviously owned by China, so watch out, but it's a fun platform to be on. We are on all socials, really, at AI for Humans Show. We're going to be uploading stuff from the show, from us, from other different stuff there, but it's a super fun way to do short form content. I think the other big thing to know is we're going to be doing more YouTube content. We're going to be releasing more shorts. We did release a short audio short too. We're expanding out our platform to do a little bit more as we grow through the summer. So please, as always, share with your friends, share with your family. I had a really nice visit with my family and friends back in the Northwest, and I heard from multiple people. I love the show. I think it's great. I tell all the people I know about it. This is how shows grow. You have to tell people about them, because in this world of AI content and content in general, there's so much stuff. So if you enjoy the show, please tell somebody about it, tweet about it, share it on Facebook, share it all these places. We love interacting with people, so thank you so much for everybody for listening. I feel like this is the pledge drive. We're doing the pledge drive now. All you need is to donate $20 a month and you get a tote bag and our love and support.
Gavin, that's a lot. All right. It's a lot. We're asking people to force our faces into their feeds. Oh, I don't know.
You're right.
But we will hop on the promo pony and we'll ride it into the sunset. So yeehaw, baby.
Yeehaw. All right, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for joining us. Come back next week. Bye-bye.